The fire had swept through Chico, Arizona territory, with a vengeful fury that left the small mining settlement charred and gasping. Daisy O'Brien stood in the smoldering ruins of what had once been her father's general store, her lungs burning with each breath as ash swirled around her like malevolent snowflakes. The year was 1878, and everything her family had built over the last 5 years had vanished in a single night of hell. Her knees buckled as another coughing fit overtook her. The smoke still hung thick in the air despite the fire having died down hours ago. Daisy's eyes watered as she desperately tried to catch her breath, her vision blurring as she stumbled forward, determined to salvage whatever might remain in the store's back room. "Stay with me," a deep voice commanded as strong hands steadied her shoulders. "The air's clear now over by the creek." "You shouldn't be here, miss." Through streaming eyes, Daisy looked up into the concerned face of a cowboy she'd never seen before. His features were shadowed by his wide-brimmed hat, but she could make out sharp cheekbones and eyes the color of a summer storm. "I need to," she tried to speak, but dissolved into another fit of coughing. Without asking permission, the cowboy swept her into his arms. "You need to breathe," he said firmly. "The rest can wait." "Put me down," Daisy protested weakly, embarrassed by the intimate contact. "I don't even know who you are." "Name's Nathan Vance," he replied, carrying her away from the ruins. "I rode in this morning to find half the town burned to cinders. Now stop arguing and let me help you, miss." "O'Brien, Daisy O'Brien," she managed between wheezes. "My father's store." "Won't do him any good if his daughter suffocates trying to save it," Nathan said bluntly. He carried her to the creek that ran along the western edge of Chico, setting her down gently on a flat boulder. The air was indeed clearer here, and Daisy drew in grateful breaths as Nathan filled a canteen and handed it to her. "Small sips," he instructed. As her coughing subsided, Daisy became acutely aware of her disheveled appearance. Her once white blouse was gray with soot, her hair had escaped its pins, and her face must be streaked with dirt and tears. She was 22 years old and had never been handled by a strange man before. The propriety her mother had instilled in her reared up belatedly. "Thank you for your assistance, Mr. Vance, but I should return to help my father," she said, attempting dignity despite her bedraggled state. Nathan's expression softened. "Your father's the storekeeper? I saw a man directing some fellows with buckets over by what's left of the mercantile." "Gray hair, spectacles," Daisy nodded with relief. "That's him, Patrick O'Brien. He seemed in one piece, if that helps." Nathan squinted back toward town. "What happened here? Fire like this doesn't just start itself." Daisy's hands trembled around the canteen. "The saloon, there was a fight. Someone knocked over a lamp, and with the drought we've had." She shook her head. "It spread so fast. We tried to save what we could, but the wind carried embers to the dry roofs." Nathan nodded grimly. "Seen it before. One spark in the wrong place can destroy everything a town's built." He studied her face. "You should rest here while I go see if your father needs help." "No," Daisy said firmly, standing up though her legs still felt unsteady. "I've rested enough. I need to help." A smile tugged at the corner of Nathan's mouth. "Stubborn, aren't you? Determined," she corrected. "There's a difference." "Not much of one from where I'm standing," he replied, but he offered his arm nevertheless. "At least let me escort you back." Daisy hesitated, then placed her hand on his forearm. "Are you passing through Chico, Mr. Vance?" "Was planning to," he said as they walked slowly back toward the ruins. "I'm headed to the Morrison Ranch, hired on as a wrangler for the cattle drive north next month. Old Man Morrison's place, that's 10 miles west of here." Daisy glanced up at him. "What brought you to Chico first?" Nathan shrugged. "Supplies, letters, a decent meal that wasn't cooked over a campfire." His expression darkened. "Doesn't look like I'll find any of that now." As they approached the center of town, Daisy could see her father directing a group of men clearing debris from what remained of their store. The front wall had collapsed entirely, but the back room where they stored excess inventory appeared partially intact. Patrick O'Brien's face lit with relief when he spotted his daughter. Daisy, thank the Lord. He hurried over, embracing her tightly before holding her at arm's length to examine her. Are you hurt? Just a bit of smoke in my lungs, Pa. I'm fine now. She turned to introduce Nathan, but the cowboy had already stepped away, moving to help a group of men lifting a charred beam. Throughout the day, Daisy caught glimpses of Nathan as he worked alongside the townspeople to clear debris and salvage what could be saved. He moved with purpose and strength, never complaining despite the grueling work. By sundown, when the volunteers gathered in the church, the only building in the town center that had survived unscathed, Daisy found herself looking for his tall figure among the crowd. Reverend Collins stood at the pulpit, his normally pristine collar smudged with soot. Friends, we've suffered a great loss today, but we are blessed that no lives were taken, though many are displaced. The church will remain open for those who need shelter tonight. A murmur ran through the crowd. At least a third of Chico's residents had lost their homes. What about food? Someone called out. My children are hungry and our pantry's nothing but ashes now. The Reverend looked troubled. We have some provisions, but not enough for everyone. I can help with that, a deep voice announced from the back. Nathan stepped forward, removing his hat. I was headed to the Morrison ranch. I reckon Mr. Morrison would spare some supplies if I explained the situation. Daisy watched as the townspeople regarded the stranger with surprise and growing hope. That's mighty generous, Reverend Collins said, but it's a long ride to make before dark. I'd leave at first light, Nathan replied. Could be back by midday tomorrow with whatever supplies Morrison can spare. I'll go with you, Daisy found herself saying before she'd fully thought it through. All eyes turned to her. I keep the inventory for our store. I know exactly what supplies people will need most. Her father looked alarmed. Daisy, it's not proper for you to. We don't have time for proper, Pa, she interrupted. People need help now. Nathan studied her with those storm-gray eyes. It'll be a hard ride, Miss O'Brien. I've been riding since I was 6 years old, Mr. Vance. I can keep up. A hint of respect flickered across his face. Then we leave at dawn. The next morning, Daisy waited by the church with a borrowed horse. She'd exchanged her ruined skirt for a pair of her father's old trousers, practical for the ride but scandalous enough that she'd draped a long jacket over them. Her hair was neatly braided, and she'd scrubbed her face clean of soot. Nathan arrived precisely as the first rays of sun crept over the eastern horizon. If he was surprised by her attire, he didn't comment. Instead, he handed her a small parcel wrapped in cloth. Managed to find some biscuits, he explained. Not much, but it'll keep you going till we reach the ranch. The gesture touched her. Thank you. They rode in comfortable silence as Chico fell behind them. The landscape opened up into vast expanses of desert scrub punctuated by jutting red rock formations. Daisy had lived in Arizona territory for 5 years, but had rarely ventured this far from town. How long have you been a cowboy, Mr. Vance? She asked as they followed a winding trail through a rocky pass. Since I was 15, he replied, keeping his eyes on the trail. And it's Nathan. Out here, Mr. Vance sounds strange. Then you should call me Daisy. She studied his profile. Where are you from originally? Missouri, left after the war when there wasn't much left for a boy without family. The simple statement held volumes of untold grief. I'm sorry, Nathan shrugged. Long time ago now. We came west after my mother died, Daisy offered. Pa thought a fresh start would do us good. It was just the two of us. By then my brothers had already moved to California. And did it do you good? Daisy considered the question. Yes, I think so. We built something here, or we had until yesterday. Nathan glanced over at her. You'll build again. People like you and your pa have grit. Is that a compliment coming from a cowboy? She smiled to show she was teasing. Highest praise I know, he replied seriously. They reached the Morrison ranch by mid-morning. It was larger than Daisy had expected, a sprawling operation with several outbuildings, corrals filled with horses, and a main house constructed of solid timber. Samuel Morrison, a gruff man in his 60s with a beard that reached his chest, listened to their account of the fire with growing concern. "Damn shame," he muttered, shaking his head. "Chico's a good town, honest folks." He turned to his foreman. "Jenkins, have the boys load a wagon with supplies. Flour, beans, salt pork, coffee, the works. And throw in some of that lumber we were saving for the new barn." Daisy was overwhelmed by the rancher's generosity. "Mr. Morrison, we can't accept so much without payment." Morrison waved away her protest. "Consider it a loan to the town if it makes you feel better. Pay me back when you're on your feet again." He fixed Nathan with a stern look. "But I still expect you back here in 3 days, Vance. We've got cattle to move." "Yes, sir," Nathan nodded. "I'll be here." While the ranch hands loaded the wagon, Morrison's wife insisted that Daisy and Nathan join them for lunch. The hot meal was the first proper food Daisy had eaten since before the fire, and she was grateful for both the nourishment and the kindness. As they prepared to leave with the loaded wagon, Mrs. Morrison pressed a bundle into Daisy's hands. "Some of my old dresses," she explained. "Might be a bit large, but better than nothing for the women who lost their clothes." With the wagon fully loaded, Nathan took the reins while Daisy rode alongside. The return journey was slower due to the heavy load, and Nathan estimated they wouldn't reach Chico until dusk. "We should make camp when it gets dark," he suggested as the afternoon waned. "Dangerous to navigate these trails at night with a full wagon." Daisy nodded, though the prospect of spending a night alone with a man she barely knew was daunting. Proper or not, they had no choice if they wanted to deliver the supplies safely. They made camp in a small clearing beside a stream. Nathan unhitched the horses and tended to them while Daisy gathered wood for a fire. Working together without discussion, they established a comfortable camp with the wagon providing some shelter. As night fell and they sat beside the fire sharing a simple meal of beans and jerky, Daisy found herself studying Nathan's face in the flickering light. There was a quiet strength to him, a steadiness that she found comforting. "Tell me about the cattle drive," she said, breaking the companionable silence. Nathan poked at the fire with a stick. "We'll be taking about 500 head north to the railroad in Colorado. Month-long journey if the weather holds and the rivers aren't too high. Good money if we make it without losing too many cattle." "Sounds dangerous." "Can be," he admitted. "Stampedes, river crossings, rustlers, but mostly it's just long days, dust, and beans for every meal." His mouth quirked in a half-smile. "Not exactly the romantic life some imagine." "Is that why you do it? For the romance of it?" Nathan considered her question seriously. "No, I do it because I'm good with horses, decent with cattle, and I like the open country." He paused. "And because I haven't found a reason to stop yet." Something in his tone made Daisy wonder what kind of reason might make a man like Nathan Vance settle down. Before she could pursue the thought, he asked, "What about you?" "Always planned to be a storekeeper's daughter. I enjoy the store," she replied. "Meeting people, keeping the books, ordering inventory, but..." She hesitated. "But sometimes I wonder if that's all there is, if I'll just keep helping Pa until he's gone and then run the store alone until I'm old and gray." She stared into the fire. The fire destroyed everything, but in a strange way it also made me realize how quickly it could all disappear, made me wonder what I'm waiting for. Nathan studied her across the flames. "What would you do if you could do anything?" The question caught her off guard. No one had ever asked her that before. "I'd like to teach," she said finally. "I've been helping with the Sunday school at church. I love seeing children learn, watching their faces when they understand something new." "You'd make a fine teacher," Nathan said simply. His confidence in this dream she'd barely acknowledged warmed her more than the fire. They talked long into the night, sharing stories of their pasts and hopes for the future. When Daisy finally curled up in her blanket on one side of the fire, she felt as though she'd known Nathan Vance for years rather than days. They arrived in Chico the following evening to cheers from the townspeople. The supplies were quickly distributed, with Daisy efficiently organizing the process based on each family's needs. Nathan worked alongside the men, unloading the lumber and beginning the process of rebuilding. Over the next 2 days, Daisy found herself seeking out Nathan's company whenever possible. They worked side by side, clearing debris from the store, salvaging what could be saved and planning for rebuilding. In those brief moments together, their easy conversation continued, punctuated by lingering glances and accidental touches that sent unexpected warmth through Daisy's body. On the evening before Nathan was due to return to the Morrison Ranch, Daisy found him sitting alone on the steps of the half-rebuilt church, staring at the sunset. "Mind if I join you?" she asked. He shifted to make space for her. "Was hoping you would." They sat in silence for a moment, watching as the setting sun painted the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks. "You're leaving tomorrow," Daisy said finally, unable to keep the regret from her voice. "Have to. Gave Morrison my word." Nathan turned to look at her, his expression unreadable. "But I'll be back this way after the cattle drive. Late summer, probably. Chico will look different by then. We'll have rebuilt most of it." "I'm not coming back for Chico," he said quietly. The simple statement hung between them, charged with meaning. Daisy's heart beat faster as she met his gaze. "Nathan, I know it's too soon," he said quickly. "We've only known each other a few days, but I've never met anyone like you, Daisy. You're strong and kind and—" He shook his head, frustrated with his inability to express himself. "I'd like to write to you while I'm gone, if that would be agreeable." A smile spread across Daisy's face. "I'd like that very much." Relief flashed in his eyes. "And when I come back, perhaps we could—" "Yes," she interrupted, suddenly certain. "Whatever you're going to suggest, yes." Nathan laughed, the sound rich and warm in the gathering dusk. Hesitantly, he reached for her hand, his rough fingers gentle against her skin. "I've wandered for a long time, Daisy. Never thought I'd find a reason to stop." The weeks following Nathan's departure were filled with hard work and gradual progress. Chico began to rise from the ashes, with new buildings replacing the old and a spirit of cooperation uniting the townspeople. Daisy threw herself into the reconstruction of the store, working alongside her father to create something even better than what they'd lost. Every week, without fail, a letter arrived from Nathan. His handwriting was unpracticed but clear, the words thoughtful and increasingly tender as he described the cattle drive and his growing feelings for her. Daisy treasured each letter, reading them repeatedly until the paper grew soft with handling. In her replies, she shared details of Chico's rebirth and her own evolving dreams. With the town rebuilding, the need for a proper school had become apparent. The town council had approached Daisy about teaching once construction was complete, and she had accepted with enthusiasm. Summer faded into autumn. The store reopened with a grand celebration, and Daisy began teaching in the newly built schoolhouse. Her life had taken on a pattern and purpose that satisfied her, yet each day she found herself looking down the main street, hoping for a glimpse of a familiar rider. Nathan's letters indicated the cattle drive had been successful but challenging. The last letter, received in early October, promised he would be heading back to Arizona Territory within the week. Since then, silence. As October waned with no word from Nathan, Daisy tried to quell her growing worry. Cattle drives were dangerous, trail conditions unpredictable. Any number of innocent explanations could account for the delay. It was on a crisp November morning, with frost edging the windows of the schoolhouse, that a commotion in the street drew Daisy's attention. Excusing herself from her students, she stepped onto the porch to see a group of riders entering town. Her heart leaped when she recognized the lead rider's familiar posture. Nathan looked thinner, his face weathered from months on the trail, a new scar cutting across his jawline. But his eyes, when they found hers across the distance, held the same warmth she remembered. She stood frozen as he dismounted and walked toward her, removing his hat as he approached the schoolhouse steps. The students had spilled out behind her, whispering excitedly at the arrival of the Cowboys. "Miss O'Brien," Nathan said formally, though his eyes conveyed much more than his words. "I apologize for the delay. We ran into some trouble in Colorado." "Mr. Vance," she replied, equally formal despite her racing heart. "We had begun to worry." A shadow crossed his face. "Had some reckoning to do before I could return, wanted to be certain about what I was offering." Understanding that this conversation wasn't meant for her students' ears, Daisy turned to the eldest girl. "Martha, please lead the class in reading Chapter 5 until I return." Once the children had filed back inside, Daisy descended the steps to stand before Nathan. Up close, she could see the exhaustion etched in his features, yet there was a new certainty in his gaze. "You're hurt," she said, gesturing to the scar, healed now. He touched it absently. "Rustlers hit us near the Colorado border, lost some cattle and 2 good men." "I'm sorry," she said softly, made me think about what matters. Nathan took a deep breath. "I turned down Morrison's offer to stay on for the winter, told him I had somewhere else I needed to be." Hope bloomed in Daisy's chest. "And where is that, wherever you are?" He reached into his pocket and withdrew a small, worn box. "I've been carrying this for 500 miles, practicing what to say. Now that I'm here, the words don't seem adequate." He opened the box to reveal a simple gold band set with a small pearl. "It was my mother's. Only thing I have left of her." His voice roughened. "Daisy O'Brien, I know I don't have much to offer, no land, no house, just my hands and my word. But I love you, and if you'll have me, I swear I'll spend my life making you happy." Tears welled in Daisy's eyes as she looked from the ring to Nathan's face. "Your hands and your word are worth more than gold to me, Nathan Vance. Is that a yes?" A smile began to spread across his weary face. "Yes," she whispered, and then louder, "Yes." Nathan slipped the ring onto her finger, then gathered her into his arms, kissing her with a tenderness that belied his rugged exterior. Daisy melted into the embrace, knowing that the path ahead might not be easy, but it would be traveled together. They married 2 weeks later in the newly rebuilt church, with the entire town of Chico in attendance. Patrick O'Brien gave his daughter away with misty eyes, whispering that her mother would have been proud. Nathan found work as the town's blacksmith, his skill with horses and metal quickly earning him respect. They lived in rooms above the store until spring, when they broke ground on a small house at the edge of town, close enough for Daisy to walk to the schoolhouse each day. As the years passed, Chico grew and prospered. The O'Brien General Store expanded, with Nathan eventually joining his father-in-law in the business. Daisy continued teaching until the birth of their first child, a son they named James, after Nathan's father. A daughter, Margaret, followed 2 years later, and another son, Thomas, 2 years after that. On the 5th anniversary of the fire that had first brought them together, Nathan and Daisy stood on the porch of their home, watching their children play in the yard as the sun set over the Arizona desert. "You ever miss it?" Daisy asked, leaning against her husband's solid frame. The open range, the freedom of the trail. Nathan's arm tightened around her waist as he considered the question. "Sometimes I miss the quiet," he admitted with a smile. 3 children don't leave much room for that." She laughed softly, nudging him with her elbow. "But no," he continued more seriously. "I found something better than freedom. I found home." He turned to face her, cupping her cheek with a hand that had grown slightly softer over the years of storekeeping but still bore the calluses of honest work. "I found you." As the last light of day gilded their little house in gold, Daisy rose on tiptoe to kiss her husband, grateful for the fire that had destroyed her world, but led her to a love that had built something far stronger from the ashes.